Someone would like to make one. Mary?
I move that the select board reappoint Laura Simon to the Climate Action Steering Team, CAT, for a 3-year term beginning December 10th, 2024 and ending December 9th, 2027.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Ida. Any discussion?
I just wanted to mention that I've gotten to know Laura in the last year, and she's a real help to a number of different worthy causes.
Wonderful. Okay, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our next reappointment is of Jesse Pollard to the Hartford Energy Commission for a 3-year term. I guess I'll just have you check Kim to see if he's on Zoom.
I do not see Jesse on.
Okay, I will take a motion. Someone would like to make one? Ida?
I'll make a motion
Okay, we have a motion and a
to
second.
reappoint
So all
Jesse
those in
Pollard to
favor
the
say
Hartford
aye.
Energy Commission
Aye.
for a 3-year
Opposed?
term beginning December
Okay.
10th, 2024 and ending December 9th, 2027.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Mary. Any discussion on this one?
Just gratitude to Jesse for his great leadership on the Energy Commission.
Thank you, Ida. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Well, we've done our reappointments. Town managers report. We'll turn to you, John.
We are already 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Thanks to the silence of our visitors. I'll start by saying we'd like to congratulate Katie Williams, the town of Hartford's first community nurse. We're very pleased to have her on board as Katie brings a wealth of experience from her long tenure as Heartland's community nurse. December is going to be kind of a
Second, John. Jesse, just so you know, we just reappointed you.
Yeah, you can go home.
Start with 1 minute. Yeah, no, we're making great time.
Fast, yeah.
Are you complaining? You got reappointed. Don't argue about it.
All
Yes,
right.
congratulations.
All right, sorry, John.
No, that's quite all right. December will be a relatively soft opening for Katie's services. She's getting to know her co-workers, getting to know the folks over at the Bugby Center, and will be much more active out in the community in this next month. With regard to budget update, I can report that immediately after the December 3rd meeting, I asked for the heads of our larger departments to meet targets for budget cuts totaling $700,000 in keeping with the discussion of that evening. We have also asked the smaller department heads to suggest savings as well. Gail and I have had a good response thus far. We're going to be meeting tomorrow, and we're again collecting that input and plan to provide an update to you all leading up to the December 17th budget meeting. I'd like to mention that on December 5th, town manager joined with the Nature Conservancy and many local leaders and staff to participate in a community resilience building discussion, focusing on climate change and measures to take to prepare for more extreme weather events here in Hartford. The information gathered at that session will help inform the town's future work with the Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission to update the town's hazard mitigation plan. So many thanks to our Environmental Sustainability Coordinator, Dana Clausen, Matt Osborne, and the whole planning department for their work to set this meeting up. Beyond my own report, Mr. Chair, I've got a few highlights to raise. Lisa has pointed out that upcoming elections will involve several positions. At the school district side of the equation, there will be a one position for a 3-year term for moderator. There are one position for a 2-year term on the school board and one position for a 3-year term on the school board. On the town side, that same moderator position is open for a 3-year election. The select board has the remaining 1 year of a 2-year term, and there's one of those spots. The select board also has 2-year term for one position and 2 positions for 3-year terms. The West Hartford Library trustees have the remaining 2 years of a 5-year term, and there are 2 positions on with those restrictions. There are 3 years of a 5-year term for one position, and there's one position for a full 5-year term. The Department of Public Works points out that they developed with communications specialist and Sanborn Head a public survey regarding curbside recycling and rubbish disposal, which will be open, I believe, until December 20th. So if you haven't taken the survey, please do. We'd also like to recognize and thank the Highway Division for working on Thanksgiving to ensure our roads were safe for holiday travel. They also would like to have us all welcome Larry Rogers, who is a former town employee who's been persuaded back to serve as an interim chief wastewater operator for both the White River Junction and Quechee wastewater systems. We'd also like to welcome Jeremy Bergeron as a water operator 1 to the DPW team. The communications and media specialist notes that he worked on the town meeting cycle documents and web updates. And with regard to Parks and Rec, there's an update from Scott Hausler that we have reached out to Clearwater Filtration to arrange for a free test of the water at the West Hartford Library to determine the types of iron we have, and that this should assist us in determining the type of treatment best suited for the water supply out there. The Department of Planning and Development points out that they have continued work on updating and redesigning that department's section of the town website. Police Department Chief notes that he'd like to specifically thank Sergeant Duncan McDonald, Officer Keeling, Officer Bennett, Sergeant Solomita, Officer Moody, and Officer Goslin for their dedication to the town on Thanksgiving Day and night. While many of us were thankfully in a warm home with our families, these 6 officers spent their time responding to motor vehicle crashes, alarms, and suicide threats. The fire department notes that station number 2 project has begun. All staff and apparatus have been moved to station number 1 during the construction period. The living trailer is being removed to allow site work. Chief Cooney would like to thank Hartford DPW for their assistance in disconnecting the trailer from utilities. Chief Cooney also wants to thank the Hartford Fire Department staff for their assistance in demobilizing the Quechee station and compressing our operations into one location. Station 1 will be crowded with staff while the construction is in process, and he appreciates their assistance in that regard. In December, we will spend time, he notes, introducing Katie Williams, the new community nurse, to the community, stakeholders and partners. And in January, they plan to begin an initial rollout of outreach.
In January.
Question for
January.
John.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't have a question, but I don't know if you could relay this to who put together the curbside recycling survey?
It was a combination of myself, Brian Gazda, Sanborn Head, and J.D. Hawks, John
Okay.
Hawks.
Because a statistician told me that you should also have none of the above. Because there were several questions that couldn't be answered because none of the parameters fit.
Okay. I will pass that along. Thank you for that tip.
Other questions for John? John, I thought in our charter change, we made the town and school district moderator like one position.
That's absolutely right. I was just reading from Lisa's report. I will confirm that and talk about it with her.
Okay.
I think you're right, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
So too.
All right, thanks very much, John.
Mhm.
Okay, our next item is to consider adopting a 250th anniversary resolution. We have the resolution in our packets, and we have Gwen here to talk to us about it.
Good evening. My name is Gwen Tucson, and I live up in the Christian Street Historic District, up on the Hartford Norwich Town line. I prepared some remarks here. We are now living in the time period that marks the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and the warring conflicts surrounding the birth of our nation. The Hartford Historical Society has been working with area organizations, individuals, and town employees to commemorate our nation's founding with events and activities. We envision that the best way to conduct these activities is to establish a town-wide Hartford 250th Commemoration Committee. We have many national, state, and local resources to utilize. And the state of Vermont has created the Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission and is encouraging towns like Hartford to adopt resolutions to work on the 250th commemoration. What's our calendar and our timeline? Our nation's semi-quincentennial is a multi-year commemoration throughout the nation. In fact, some 250th anniversary events have already occurred, such as the 250th anniversaries of the Boston Tea Party, the Battle of Bunker Hill, and others. In Hartford, we hope to have events start with Memorial Day 2025, commemorating the Green Mountain Boys' engagement in May 1775, the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga, and then rising to a peak at July 4th, 2026, and then some small events that go through the summer of 2026. The Vermont state calendar is a 3-year period going through 2027 with the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Harborton on July 7th, 2027, and through to the end of 2027 for the state. You know, for me, I was in grade school during our bicentennial in 1976. And I have a lot of fond memories of the celebratory events, the historic reenactments, traveling by car, following the bicentennial train around the Northeast. And one of the reasons why I stand before you today is because of the strong importance of history I gained as a child because of my participation in those events. And there are definitely many reasons to celebrate the founding of our country, but we're calling it a commemoration because our country is a continuing process to refine and improve our democracy. So we act in line with the ideals that are set forth in the writing of our foundational documents, and even those that we recited tonight in our Pledge of Allegiance. There's much to reflect on in our country regarding our unmet promises. For example, it took 144 years from the signing of the Declaration of Independence for all the women, the adult women in our country, to have the right to vote. And the conflicts and struggles to found this country was a time of sacrifice, hardship, and suffering for many families and individuals, as we all know. The Revolutionary era was very polarizing, including in our own state of what is now Vermont. And there were continued losses even before that were ongoing for the first people who occupied our land. And with these ideas in mind, we refer to it as a commemoration. It's both celebratory and reflective. So we want to make in Hartford, our local 250th, a memorable and engaging investment in our civics, our arts, and our history for our community members in Hartford and in the Upper Valley, especially our youth. We want to have gatherings that offers opportunities to reflect and learn about our past and set a stage for an informed and engaged future. How we frame and organize events at the town level can make a significant impact on our ability to fully engage our town's residents and motivate residents to take part and attend events. The 250th commemoration has the potential for many varied and well-attended events, but it's beyond the capacity of organizations such as the Hartford Historical Society to publicize such events. So a short-term 250th committee under the auspices of the town itself, rather than a private organization, has a greater potential to recruit interest for our citizens. I'd be most pleased to take questions about what we've accomplished thus far, what we're planning, and whatever else comes to mind. And I thank you for your time.
Gwen, any questions for Gwen on this? questions about the resolution?
Gwen, I do have a question, sorry. When you reference, thank you, by the way, also, this is very cool, and I'm really excited to see what the committee comes up with and the state as well. When you reference the first people to occupy the land, does that imply that you might be looking into some acknowledgements about the indigenous people that were here prior to
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, it's definitely a more, potentially a little more enlightened than what I remember from 1976, where we're thinking about the elements of our history that were, it's not just about the battles that were physical, although the veterans back then were obviously a critical piece of it, but there's a bigger history there.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
Any other questions for Gwen?
before I limp back.
Let's get her going.
Have you any thoughts as to the composition of your proposed committee? Is it the group you've already assembled, or are you looking to have different people?
What we've learned is that if you create a committee that's select board linked, or however it's called, then people apply. We certainly have a number of individuals that are ready to line up and be members. We also, because it's posted publicly, there may be people out there we don't even know about in the town of Hartford that might be interested. So we can be flexible, and we find out we have a bigger group than we realize, we can come back to you and say, let's change the size. I'm game. So we can play that by ear, but we know that if we have 3 people from Hartford Historical Society, we got to have more than that on the committee for the quorum. So that's kind of where we're at.
Maybe.
Why does this have to be a select board or a select board appointed board? I guess
That's the biggest question, right?
I'm missing the connection of why it is that the select board why it is you're asking the select board to appoint a committee of people that have the interest in the 250th anniversary of town. It seems like, you say you have a bunch of people that are willing to step up and be part of the committee. So I'm having a tough time understanding why it is it has to be driven by the select board.
The town has resources that the rest of the organizations don't have by ourselves.
Such
For
as,
one, it's simply, you can have a meeting with the folks who don't live in town who are involved, and they're home in Tunbridge in February, and we can do it by Zoom. Because we've got the resources here with Matt's help to hook it up,
you don't
Right.
have Zoom
No.
capabilities.
to easily get, we can have people in person and online.
We don't offer
Right.
Zoom for every meeting.
Maybe Teams?
Microsoft Teams, maybe, yeah.
Teams, okay, Teams, whatever, yeah, what the softwares you use, right? I'm not even sure what that is.
And
So
why
we've
is it,
got capacity like that.
why is it Teams can't be done over Teams, like residents, and then everybody meet on Teams? I mean, I'm just trying to understand.
Right, that's possible. The other piece is it adds a layer of formality to it that resonate. To me, it's like all of a sudden this is important for the town. If it's like we had one staff member at the Parks and Rec Department didn't even realize what the Hartford Historical Society was. So, you add a layer of formality to it. When you look back at the success we had in 2011 for the town of Hartford's 250th, it was work done by the Hartford Historical Preservation Commission, and it added a layer of, this is important enough that the town is taking it on.
So if we decide to form a committee for this, what would you be seeking from the town? I guess that's what I'm still stuck with.
It
Trying to
is a
understand.
formal path to keep the communication going smoothly. Because you're already engaging town officials, you've got the town's communication networks. You can easily get it onto the town, into the town rec pamphlets, the events are happening. There's just basically, as I see it, it's a bigger entity than trying to just do it on the side. We're not the United Way.
I,
does that make sense? And help me out if you can think of a better way to describe it,
yeah,
you know,
I
because
don't,
I'm,
I understand what you're saying, Glenn. I guess I have reservations. I think that we committee ourselves to death sometimes. We have a lot of committees, and is this gonna be a lot of, I mean, and is this gonna be another committee that's gonna get a stipend?
Nope,
Yeah.
no compensation,
It
it
says,
says.
yeah.
Oh, heck no.
Okay, so, all right.
It's a very, it's finite. I mean, this ends.
Right, this ends.
No, I
At the end of
understand.
2027, right, it's
I
over.
understand.
So it's kind of like you get our imprimatur, or whatever it's called. Right? Like,
Endorsement.
people look at it and say, hey, this is something that we should take seriously. The town, created this committee and, this is really important to us. It's not just, a group of people on their own doing it. It's got essentially, like John said, our endorsement.
It's
That's
got
sort of-
our
that's sort of
endorsement,
the
right?
idea.
It's like the governor saying, we are gonna do something about the 250th.
Yeah.
And he makes
I
the
saw
commission.
There was a list of towns that have adopted the resolution.
There is finally
so
a list.
Presumably Hartford will be listed as well
Right.
with the other towns. So, I mean, it doesn't really.
And I'll point out, Gwen has already had discussions, you've mentioned them, with Parks and Rec and with the planning department. So both Scott Hausler and Matt Osborne are well aware, Lori is well aware
There's no
of what you have in
consequences,
mind.
like, it
Well, I mean,
it ends when it ends.
you say that, but I mean, is there gonna be staff time?
I suppose if they want to volunteer their staff time, they could. As far as I can tell in this, we don't have like a liaison to the committee. I mean, what is that your understanding?
Right, and that's where, because I'm new to the idea, do we, does a select board person want to attend and find out what's going on? That part I don't know. That's where I'm, I feel like I'm new to it.
Is there a charge that we supposed to follow for this somewhere?
I don't have a charge. I mean, the details of the committee right now are in the resolution. I'm sure we could adopt the resolution and then get a charge to vote on like at an upcoming meeting. We don't have one.
Usually when we form a committee, we have a charge for the committee, so that's why I'm.
Yeah, I mean, there was ways to do this. We could adopt the resolution without the details of the committee. I think we do want to say though that we established a local committee, and we fill in the details with the charge at the upcoming meeting, or something like that. Because we do want to like Mary, and then
Yeah, I think I'm following on what Lanny's saying, but we wouldn't have to accept the applications. That would go to
No,
you.
we would.
Oh, we would?
Yes.
Okay.
If we're charging it, we have to do that.
Okay.
Right, because we don't have the power to do it. Right. I can give you a whole list of people that are gonna
Or volunteer,
apply,
yeah.
right, and that's not, we kind of know that, unless you reject me, I'm gonna be the chair. That's not a problem, yeah. So that, those things, those kinds of details we can definitely work on. And we know that the funding of this stuff, there's ways that things were paid for the commemoration of the celebration of the forming of the town of Hartford is going to be similar. There was a lot of stuff that went through the Hartford Historical Society. Because that simplified, I think that simplified things.
I'm
kidding.
Right.
sorry.
So one, I think we need to delegate who ends up being responsible for actually drafting the proposed charge. And so there's that. And then are you suggesting that there will be funding requests from the town? No, Linda's saying no.
If
The
you
resolution
have
says May.
right, if you have a concert in the park, you already have funding to hire a band or musicians. So if you hire musicians that are related to 250th, it's already part of the budget.
So we're gonna piggyback on to things like
Right.
concerts that are already planned for, in the park here.
If you do arts and crafts things for your youth at your summer programs, where if you do an arts and craft thing that's related to, let's do a historical craft that's related to kids in the late 18th century.
And
then
those
it's
are things.
already part of the budget.
Yep, okay, so I like that.
Right.
And those are things that would be determined with the consent of whoever the organizing department is, et cetera. So you guys might have, the committee might have a recommendation like, oh, could we use this opportunity to highlight this with this event as part of that? Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I just want to know who's gonna do the draft of the charge.
And the question I had also was, who would determine who the 7 voting members of the committee would be?
Right.
Do you have any thoughts along those lines? Like maybe after a period, you would collect interested people, put them on a list and propose a slate to the
Oh,
board?
we could potentially propose a slate because we know the people that could be on it. And now we have slightly more than 7, so we could like basically whittle it down, we could have alternatives, because we have people, it's just a matter of making it official.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
not
you
a
just
problem.
submit applications as
Yeah.
any other committee member and, you can work amongst yourselves if there's more and you
Right.
don't want someone to apply or you want them to all apply and have recommendations for, other people, obviously it will be subject to open meeting law, so members of the public will always be able to attend and members of the select board will always be able to attend or, so that part isn't complicated at all. I think it's just the applications will be put forth and we'll,
We obviously won't want it to be unruly remote.
yeah.
Right.
I think we'll want at some point a detailed charge. I guess the question is whether the board's comfortable adopting the resolution now and then we vote on a charge later, or if we want to sort of table both until upcoming meeting. Manny?
I'm more than happy accepting the charge, I guess.
There isn't a charge yet.
There is.
Well, I mean, not the charge,
Res-
but the resolution.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I misspoke.
And everyone feeling like we can do the resolution and then we'll just need to follow up with, because you guys can't really form a committee without having a charge and without doing this, but this at least establishes that that's our intent. Everybody pretty good with that? Okay, normally what I do is I read the resolution and then I'll just take a motion to adopt the resolution. So I will go ahead and do that. Vermont 250th Anniversary Resolution, a resolution of the town of Hartford, state of Vermont, supporting the Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission. Whereas Vermont Governor Phil Scott signed an executive order to create the Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission on December 15th, 2020, to plan, encourage, develop, coordinate, and promote observances and activities to be held in Vermont in commemoration of the historic events associated with the 250th anniversary of the 1774 signing of the Declaration of Independence, Revolutionary War between 1775 and 1777, the founding of Vermont in 1777, and the creation of the political foundations of the United States of America. Whereas the Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission hopes to engage all 252 cities and towns through their many programs, projects, and events over the next several years, thereby inspiring future leaders and celebrating Vermonters' contributions to the nation over the last 250 years. Whereas by adoption of the Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission, we hope to inspire Vermonters to learn from the history, legacy, and context of the past to build stronger communities for the future. Resolved, the town of Hartford officially establishes a local committee, the Hartford 250th Commemoration Committee, made up of a diverse group of citizens to work with the Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission on any or all activities. This is a short-term committee to be active with the passing of this resolution and to dissolve by the end of the state of Vermont's 250th Commission time period conclusion, September 1st, 2027. There will be 7 voting members. The participants of the town of Hartford from the general public are voluntary rules, and there will be no compensation for participation. Resolved, town of Hartford may provide funding for planning or implementation of 250th related commemorations in their community or region as available. Resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Vermont 250th Anniversary Commission. So we'll take a motion to adopt. Okay.
I move that the select board adopt the Vermont 250th Anniversary Resolution.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second from Ida. Any discussion?
Yes.
Lynn?
I am gonna vote for this, but I would ask that this be run by our town attorney, because I'm just nervous about the fact of this being the participants of the town of Hartford, a general public, are voluntary rules, no compensation for participation, because of the fact that this is an established committee of the town of Hartford, and town of Hartford established committees are given stipends, as all of our other committees are. I just want to make sure there's no problem with this not receiving compensation stated within this.
The question to run by is just, can we establish a committee that?
An ad hoc,
Yeah.
time-limited committee,
Yeah, where we
as opposed to a
basically say,
standing
Yeah,
commission.
that the other conditions, including
Right.
compensation, don't apply.
Just make sure that we,
Yep, I think that's a good point. So we have a motion and a second.
Right,
As a bicentennial baby, I'm very excited.
All right, so I would say, I would like to offer friendly amendment of pending legal review.
So second.
Okay, we're good on that? So we have an amended motion with a second provider.
What I would do after you folks vote and sign the resolution is hold it until I've circulated the legal opinion.
Yep.
You tell me to release it, I'll give it to Gwen, and she'll be off to the races to share with the governor's office.
Sounds good. Very excited. Yes, Brandon.
Thank you. I'm also excited about the results of this. I'm sure the participation with you folks is going to be really good, and I'm looking forward to doing your events and things like this. I do hope, like Kim, that you kind of include some alternative, so-called alternative history sources, such as those from Native peoples, and history is written by the victors, right? So perspectives like those in the book that's gaining quite a lot of traction in recent decades, the people's history of the United States. I'm sure you will look for all these things and really encouraged that you're up here and helping out with the town.
Brandon. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks very much for coming in. We definitely look forward to seeing this unfold over the next couple of years. Very exciting. Okay, our next item, we've got a couple reviewing bids for wastewater chemicals. Chris is here, or Brian. So I'll turn it over to you. First item looks like for chlorine.
Good evening. So we put an RFP out for 3 chemical products.
Okay.
One is chlorine for water disinfection for both of the water systems here in Hartford and Queechee. And the other is for 2 different types of polymers that are used to coagulate the sludge at the 2 different plants. They use 2 different types. So I broke it up into 2 different items because we have 2 different vendors.
Okay.
If you take a look at the bid results, you'll see that we only received Allen Chemical bid on all 3 of them. The other vendors didn't bid on 2 of them. So that's why I've got Allen Chemical with 1, and then I have Holland Chemical for the other one, for the other polymer. So the first one is the sodium hypochlorite, which is the chlorine that we use for the system. And on that also too is a polymer 8837. This is a specialized polymer. I talked to John Rees today. The plant.
Who's
I saw
that? Who's John Rees?
Holland Chemical. And then also with Randy Heron, who's the assistant chief operator. Several years ago, they went through a trial period of trying different polymers. And because we take polymer, we also take sludge in from the Queechee plant. In the processing, this polymer is the one that's worked the best. After you do all this, the sludge gets air dried, and then we haul it over to the Lebanon landfill, and they use it for grit fill over there for their landfill. So that's the first one. My recommendation is to award Allen Chemical for the chlorine, and then also for the polymer 8837.
Okay, questions for Brian? Manny,
No questions. I'll make a motion if anybody has any questions.
anyone have any other questions on this one? Okay, thanks, Lane.
Make a motion, we award a bid to Allen Engineering and Chemical Corporation of Rutland, Vermont for an estimated 12,000 gallons of sodium hydrochloride at a price of $3.50 per gallon, and an estimated 3,000 gallons, bless you, gallon of polymer 8837 at $25.46 per gallon. And authorize the town manager to sign agreement with Allen Engineering and Chemical Corporation for the period of December 1, 2024 to November 30th, 2025.
Great, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second from Kim. Discussion? Right?
Well, I just have a friendly amendment. I heard hydrochlorite, and I think it's
Hydrochlorite.
hypochlorite.
Or hypochlorite.
Vote.
Hydrochlorite,
No, it's hypochlorite.
hydrochlorite, hypochlorite, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hypochlorite,
Chlorine for short. right? It's called
hypochlorite, sorry.
That seems like
We
Hypo.
don't want
friendly
the-
amendment.
Hypo instead of hydro.
All right, so we have a motion from Lanny. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kim seconded. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then Brian, the next one.
The second one is for the other polymer. This one's now specific for the Queechee plant. The difference here is that they had been using Stern Pack 70 for many years now. Obviously you can see the price difference between what the Holland company is proposing. The product that the Holland company is proposing was used years ago before we switched over to the Stern Pack. I wanted to make sure that it would still be viable. So Holland actually came out, they did a jar testing of it. All the operators are satisfied with it, both at the Queechee plant and at the White River plant, that it'll work. And obviously at the price difference that what we're looking at, it's about a $15,000 savings for that. So my recommendation is to go with the Holland chemical for that.
Questions for Brian? Or a motion?
Well, just, is this one a 2-year?
Well, it's just about an 18-month
Oh,
period.
18 months.
This
Okay.
one's different.
So it does.
So
Question. I mean, I'm sure you did, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. You couldn't get Alan to come down
No.
based on the fact that we're buying all this other stuff from him?
nope.
That was for, huh?
And he would only give a 1 year, like if you know, it's the other one, it was only for 1 year. So we'll have to cycle this back in to get everybody on schedule. For to
Okay,
get
that's a
back into
shame.
2027
They won't work with
cycle.
us,
So
Other questions for Brian or a motion?
Sure. I move that the select board award the bid to Holland Company Incorporated, Adams, Massachusetts, for an estimated 12,000 gallons of Epic WW 58 at a price of $3.50 per gallon, and authorize the town manager to sign an agreement with Holland Company Incorporated for the period of December 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2026.
There's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Lanny. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then, purchase of a used front end loader. So you as well, Brian?
So unfortunately, we had an incident where it looks like a foreign substance was put into the engine oil at the front end loader. We're figuring it potentially happened around Labor Day weekend. Usually the front end loader is kept inside the facility, but there was a time period when the styrofoam collection event was going on that it was left outside for a few nights. And then after that, it started acting up. At first, we thought it was a fuel system issue because it would start, run, then stutter. Then finally, by the time we got the tech out, and he was there prepared to clean up the fuel injectors in it. But when he started draining the oil, that's when we noticed the product in there. Like a fine bead, almost like you'd find it in a sandblasting type of piece of equipment with that. So with that, I contacted the police department. They came out, did their report. We filed a passive. They sent an adjuster out. You can see they did say it was totaled just due to the age of machine. It's a 2002. And so the value was $37,437. Jeremy, we at that time started to look for a piece of equipment. And the reason why we're asking for the exception from competitive bidding is because there are only so many pieces of equipment out there. And it would just be difficult to, normally when we bid a piece of equipment like this, we're going to be asking for very specific components or part of it. And then the manufacturer comes back to us and says, we want engine size, bucket size, this and that. We're literally now what's available. Okay, what is out there? So Jeremy found some price quotes, which are provided in there. And so what we're really asking for is we do have one choice, the first choice, but we do want to take a look at that. Actually, the town of Bethel is turning that in. And the vendor should be getting it any day now. But we just want to make sure it works. So we're just asking for an exception to that and allowing us to buy a used piece of equipment for the dollar amount that we got for the insurance proceeds from this. So
questions for Brian? Renee?
Brian, did you look at rebuilding this engine?
Yeah, it would be about the same dollar amount, Lanny, for it. And the piece of equipment is in pretty rough shape. I don't know if you've been down there, it's in pretty rough shape. We did talk about this with Jeremy, and that's where we started saying, taking a look around for looking at a used piece of equipment with that. So we would spend anywhere between $30,000 to $35,000 to rebuild that engine.
So what's insurance giving us for this?
37,
30, that's a 37.
correct.
37,437, that's okay.
And then also too, just, the vendor, the number one choice vendor, they would also, then we could get a trade in, maybe 3,000 to 4,000 for the piece of equipment. So it would pay for the shipping of the used front end loader gear. So we may also just make a few dollars off of it too at the end of the day. So
We don't know what the cost of this used piece of equipment.
37,000.
Well, that's how much we're getting, right?
No, but we found the machine for 37,000
Oh,
too.
okay. So
So
how much are we getting from insurance? Then that's
37,437.
30. I'm trying to find it here. Where's-
Here we've got, the one vendor has two machines, one for 37, one for 32. And then the other vendor gave us price ranges. I believe they were in the 40s, low 50s. But the number one machine we're looking at is 37,000.
This isn't about the machinery itself, but obviously we want to know, people want to know, what's going to happen so this doesn't happen again.
Well, normally it's kept inside, but it's just because of the styrofoam collection event. They had so many big bags of styrofoam inside the building that we couldn't blow away, that we left it out for, Tom thinks it was probably out for about 3 or 4 nights that it was left out.
Okay,
So-
and that's safe enough to be inside. There isn't as easy access to.
Yeah, it should be safe. I mean, the doors, we've got latches on the doors and whatnot like that, but yeah, so it's the only time we can think of when the
Yeah.
machine was outside that this potentially might have happened.
Other questions or a motion? Okay, all right.
Okay, I move that the select board, in accordance with section 3.7 of the town purchasing policy, the select board waives the requirement for competitive bidding for a used front end loader and authorize the director of public works to purchase a used front end loader in an amount not to exceed $37,437, which complies with all other applicable provisions of the town purchasing policy.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Brandon. Any discussion? Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Brian. All right, our next item, we have Chris for. This is a grant update and request for additional select board authorizations. Just, you have the floor when you're ready.
All right, I'm here. Back again. This is for the Podunk Road engineering of the culvert. Last time I was here, we were trying to make some last minute changes. The bids came in high. We went to the state. They found some money after all the other grant awards were watered out, and they found the extra funding. So I'm back here asking for your permission to execute a contract with the engineers for the complete project through the complete design, construction ready documents, so that we won't have another project sitting around waiting for additional funding. We'll get it all done in one swoop. It increases our local match from, just a little bit more than under 3,000 to 5698. We'll use the engineering reserves for a short-term financing of the main portion of the contract, and we have money in our line item to cover the match.
Questions for Chris? Okay, I'll take a motion. Would like to make it?
Sure. Move the select board up.
Where is the motion? I'm trying to find it.
It's on page 49.
49.
Okay, thank you.
I move that the select board authorize the town manager to execute a contract with MSK Engineers for $56,980 for the Podunk Road Culvert Engineering Project, using $51,282 of engineering reserves for short-term financing until the grant reimburses the account, and $5,698 from the fiscal 25 general ledger 10-325-318 to cover the local contribution.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second the motion.
A second from Mary. Any discussion?
Thanks for finding more grant money.
Yes.
All right, all those in favor say
Wait a
aye.
minute, no question. When are we looking at this being executed?
Sorry, Chris.
When is it gonna be executed?
So the boring drillers are ready to go out and do the geotechnical investigation in about a week. We just got to get everything signed up.
Can this be happening this year?
And the winter conditions, the borings can happen, yeah.
Okay, but, okay.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
very much, Chris.
Thanks.
All right, our
Thanks,
next item is approval of historic preservation certified local government grant application. We have Matt Osborne and Jonathan Shepherd. Whenever you guys are ready. Have the floor.
Hi, I'm Matt Osborne, planner in the Department of Planning and Development Services, and this is Jonathan Sheckman, who's chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Jonathan's going to start and tell you a little bit about our CLG, our Certified Local Government.
So some of you may have heard this spiel before, but the town of Hartford is one of 19 CLGs in the state of Vermont, and we receive funds from the state in order to do historic preservation oriented projects. And in the case of the town, it includes National Register nominations, consulting with individuals about their historic properties and the potential, dealing with 106 projects that are government funded and impact on resources such as archaeological and Native American sites. It also has to deal with the fact that we receive quite a bit of money from the state, over $208,000 over the last 23 or 4 years. And these are leveraged 60-40 with labor for volunteers, staff, and a small stipend from the town. Currently, we're working on a National Register nominations in the Wilder area. And we've also got some volunteers from the Boy Scouts to repaint the signposts around the town. There are approximately 9 historic districts, and each one has a sign and a signpost. Some have been up for over a decade and are seeing a little result of rain and snow and things of that nature, and have been scraped and painted by volunteers, including Matt, by the way. I'm not sure exactly what else I can say, Matt, about.
No, I can take it from here. So this year's CLG grant application. On Railroad Road, there's a kiosk that was put in around, I think it was 2006. There are 4 panels on it. One is for the scenic byway, one's for it being a town park, and then there are 2 that have a walking tour, a historic walking tour. So they're a little bit outdated, moving in on being 20 years old. So the idea was to update that, to hire a copywriter and a graphic designer to design new panels, to work with the Historic Preservation Commission. We also want to involve the Downtown Business Association, the Monument Committee, and the Historical Society. So we would have a fair amount of public input and looking at what we want on these new panels. As Jonathan mentioned, the CLG program is a 60-40 grant, meaning 60% grant, 40% match. And just recently, in the last few years, they've provided a little bit of extra credit, so to say, in terms of if you provide more than the 40% local match requirement, you get extra credit. So the cost of hiring a consultant would be $6,000. Staff in-kind time, about $1,900, and the Historic Preservation Commission, their time is about $1,500. It's 45 hours of time for the Historic Preservation Commission, which is considered volunteers. And then staff time, it would be about 30 hours of my time over the course of the project and 5 hours of Lori Hurstfield's time. We would kick in $1,500 in cash. So we would make, it would actually be a 52.3% local match to give us some extra credit. And it would be a $4,500 grant. So we're asking you to approve submission of a grant application for the 2025 Certified Local Government Program and authorize the town manager to sign all documents related to the grant application and project implementation.
Okay, questions?
Is the, well, first of all, when you say extra credit, what does that actually translate to? Like, how does that?
This, in an application, there are certain points that you can get.
For like, be
So
more eligible?
yeah, so for providing, more funds in terms of cash and more times of the total local match, you get more points to go towards your scoring your application.
And that's, and so some of that, the 10, 625, 316 funds were they already kind of earmarked for this project in particular?
They're earmarked for the CLG grant.
Okay, be used for whatever you use it for. Great.
Questions?
Make a
Motion?
make
Yeah,
a motion. I make a motion to approve the submission of a grant application for the 2025 Certified Local Government Program and authorize the town manager to sign all documents related to the grant application and project implementation.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second.
I do have one,
Yep, Ida.
just for the consultants that you're hoping to hire, the graphic designer and the copyright, is the process for hiring those type of consultants the same for like posting any type of job opening? Or, okay. kind of
Yeah, I mean,
publicly
we
post
would
share?
do a request for proposals.
I see, okay.
Similar to what was done back in 2006 or before, to design and install the panels back then.
Okay, great.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, John, if you have the next one, review cleaning contract bids.
Yes, it's been several years since the town did go out to bid on its cleaning contract, which now covers town hall, HPD and dispatch portions of the public safety complex and the West Hartford Library. So I worked with Scott Hausler to generate a request for bids, which is attached in your packet. We received two bids, one from the incumbent, Renee Potwin of RC Cleaners LLC here in White River Junction, and another from M.N. Adele Commercial Cleaning in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. Perhaps with a plan to sub that out. It's a long commute. Overall, the bid from RC Cleaners is substantially lower than the one from our friends in Florida. And when put together, the RC Cleaners bid for routine cleaning comes to $4,450.90 per month in 2025, $4,582.90 per month in 2026, while the bid from commercial cleaning, MN Adele Commercial Cleaning, totals $6,249.91 for 2025 and $6,418.66 for 2026. So I have suggested that the select board award the contract to the low bidder, somebody we know well and has done good work for us, and that is RC Cleaning.
Okay, questions for John on this? Okay.
So this is another one of those things like with the cardiac monitor things that it's basically obligating fiscal 26 funds before the budget's adopted. I think we're fine, but I was just looking at if I'm not mistaken, oh wait, so yeah, I mean, does that fiscal 26 line up with what we budgeted so far for fiscal 26 in terms of?
I believe so, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put a pin in it for conversations with Gail, make sure that there is funding in those departments to cover this
Okay, because
contract.
like I see in the contracted services for like HPD, there's 3/4 of the cleaning, 14,250. Anyway, it would be nice
Yeah.
to just know
We
how
will
well
confirm
those
that.
line up, and if it's not substantially.
Yeah. We will confirm that for you.
Can this wait until we verify that's in the budget?
The problem is that the contract ends at the end of this year,
well,
this calendar year.
right, will Gail be able to tell us if it's in the budget for next meeting?
Yeah, I think I can get you that information before the 17th. Yeah.
I'm all for it. I'm just uncomfortable doing it, not knowing that it's already in the budget for that,
Mhm,
because we're talking about, taxpayer dollars here.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure that we've got it covered in the budget. So I would prefer to.
For which budget? We're talking about the one that's
Next
still
year.
under discussion for 2026
Right,
or the current budget year?
next year's budget.
Okay.
So what effect does it
Oh,
have
okay, at 26.
on this current budget if we do this? Is there an increase?
Okay.
That's the question too. I mean, so
Yeah.
what effect does it have on our current budget?
I guess the response I would have is, what's your alternative? If it's not currently funded
I don't. I'm
adequately in the
just wondering-
2026
I don't have an
budget?
alternative. I guess my question would be, where's it coming from?
Got it. Okay.
So sounds like there's support to table this till the 17th. Everyone okay with that?
It's got a couple unanswered questions. I
Mhm.
guess.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so select vendor to perform ordinance digitization. I think it's the third time we've seen this. Last meeting, we decided that we would not vote on it then, just make sure it's properly warned and everything.
Yes.
So it's back before us, and again, was it Unicode and general code?
Yeah.
So any questions for John or discussion amongst the board? Otherwise, I'll take a motion. Jim?
I mean, this is just the kind of thing that I like, it's hard to not have a recommendation.
If you'd like to ask me, I can recommend something right now.
Please.
But I respect you folks, and
Yeah.
you've all had opinions. My opinion is it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
It is.
I think the consensus seemed to be that Civic Plus, because it's already interacting with our website,
Yeah.
might have a slight ounce or two on its scale
That's what it seemed like. to me.
preferencing.
But that's
So
literally all I was going on.
Yeah,
that's my recommendation, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
okay. And I think that makes sense. The most important thing is to start this, right?
Yes.
And either one's gonna do it all right, but Civic Plus does integrate with our current website, which probably has some advantages. So,
I do like the idea of ease of, like,
Yeah.
not having to get to a link to another site. I mean, even like with the beacon function for the
Sure.
tax cards and stuff, like, anyway.
I'll take a motion unless there are more questions for John about this.
Where's the motion?
Page 90.
This is, yeah. Okay.
Okay. You go.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the select board instruct the town manager to award the ordinance digitization contract to Municode at the quoted price terms.
Second.
We have a second motion by Kim, second from Lanny. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you all.
Can I ask a question, John, just for going forward, is it possible to have Lana put in the actual page numbers of the motions in the, it just, I mean, because there's so much stuff, it's just a pain in the neck.
Go ahead.
I think
But-
part of the issue is that tonight, for whatever reason, the links are going to like one page
Yeah,
after.
That's been
Yeah,
happening a
that's
lot.
the-
So you have to scroll up that, but
that's
sometimes it works some perfectly. Tonight it's not working perfectly.
Yeah,
but I
that's what
think
I'm getting
We're
at.
doing the
That's-
best we can.
So the links are a
Okay.
page off,
Yeah.
and Lana and I will discuss this tomorrow.
Just, I mean, it's
Yeah.
time consuming trying to travel. People
Okay.
like read stuff,
I get it.
you know,
Oh, I just go.
I know she's got a big workload, so.
That's right, don't you, Lana? She's listening to us right now.
All over the-
Yeah,
I know.
I don't use the links. I just
Really.
scroll through the packet.
Just a, yeah.
All right, we'll get that all taken
Yeah.
care of. Next item, review bids for Hartford Fire Department cardiac monitors, and we have Chief Cooney.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Howdy.
So this is bringing back an item that the board chose to table about a month or so ago, and I believe the ask to me was to look at other alternatives in funding the third unit other than in the FY26 budget. And with our budget discussions going on currently, I decided to pull that back anyways. So we're recommending funding coming from the Fire and Ambulance Reserve account, where we do have reserve funds available that can be used for this purpose. And I'm recommending usage of those for that third unit purchase. And I'm happy to review any of the material if you
Any questions for
wanna
Scott on this stuff?
I appreciate you being able to find money elsewhere than in budgets.
Yeah, that's great. Jim?
I mean, do you anticipate replenishing those reserves with the fiscal 26 funding?
Well, I guess those are discussions for
Okay,
later.
okay.
Right now, no.
Okay.
And to accomplish some of the goals that requested for budget reductions in the budget, it is not funded wholly, proposed in FY 26.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, or I will take a motion? Okay.
Nope,
Go ahead, Lenny.
okay. I move to authorize the town manager to award the bid for 3 cardiac monitors to Zoll Medical Corporation for $123,566.02. Authorize the town manager to transfer $44,051.02 from the fire ambulance reserve account.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Brandon. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chief.
There's no resale value on our old machines, is there?
They're giving us trade in about 17.5 for the
Okay.
trade-in units.
I did ask that question. Yeah, thank you for that.
All right, our next item, we'll turn to John, is about putting back a local option sales tax before the voters. We all know that that failed narrowly last election. So what has happened now is that the state's passed a law so that you can adopt it without making a charter change. So John, I will let you tell us about the proposed language and the recommendation, and then we can decide what we want to do.
Absolutely. You've pretty much hit the highlights there, Mr. Chair. I will point out that the margin defeating the charter proposal, which would have enacted a local option sales tax, was 50 votes, 1160 to 1110 in favor. So again, since that time, legislature in Vermont has made it easier for towns to adopt local sales taxes without the need for a charter or for a charter change to accommodate it, so long as the select board first votes to recommend enactment to the voters, and second, if the voters themselves do in fact support it at a majority, by a majority vote, presumably at town meeting. So there is a recommended motion if you'd like to take that course. And it's the result of inquiries both to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns and to our bond counsel, who helps us with these kinds of matters related to town meeting preparations, Elijah Emerson. And they both have provided language of the type we could use if you wanted to recommend this to the voters. And the last part of this packet states that motion would be something like the select board recommending that the town vote to enact a 1% local option sales tax at town meeting on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Then at some point before, if you proceed with this, at some point before the middle of January, the select board would have to decide on ballot language. And I know in the past, there's been some discussion that the voters might like some limitations on what is to be done with these proposed taxes and their use. So it may be that you want to have a set of ballot language that talks about dedicating local sales tax revenue to a specific purpose, such as the reduction of property tax rates.
So we can tonight say we want to put this on the ballot, and then at a future meeting, but before the middle of January,
Yes.
we can decide on the particular language
Yes.
that we want it to have.
That's right.
Which I think makes some sense, just so we have some time to think about. Questions for John? Or if people have questions about what this does, comments on the local option sales tax, like the Lanny, and then Kim?
I have been someone that has been not very supportive of a local sales tax in the past, but I really feel that local option sales tax is a necessity now. Our budgets are becoming larger and larger, and we don't have the growth within the town of Hartford on our grand list to be able to support the large increases in our taxes. And if we can have a way to offset the taxes by way of a local option sales tax be spread amongst everybody, I think we're in a far better position to do that. And I'm going to support this local option sales tax.
Thanks very much, Lanny. Ida, and then, well.
That's great.
Okay, Ida, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just to agree with and add on to Laney's comments, it's would be spread amongst everybody in Hartford, but also everybody who visits our town from other places would be contributing to the fund that makes our town run, which I think is another good reason for this sort of tax. Just to remind me, so it's a retail, so the current one that we have is hotel rooms, restaurants, and
It's meals,
alcohol.
rooms,
Meals, rooms, and
Okay.
alcohol.
And then the new one would be
All items.
all retail.
All taxable.
All
taxable
So
retail.
not clothing,
Not
not
food.
food, I'm sorry for jumping.
and not
Okay.
medical like supplies.
Not over-the-counter medicines
Yeah.
or.
So it's one of those, if I choose to go buy a book or a fancy set of pens or cannabis, I would pay an extra penny on each dollar.
Right.
If I'm buying food, if I'm buying clothing, things like that, I don't pay.
Means your gasoline's gonna get another penny tacked onto it for $1.
Okay.
So everything that's not included, so
Yeah, is it gasoline too?
I don't know.
that
Not sure.
it will be gasoline, it has to be,
I remember
Isn't that
it
sales?
not being heating fuel.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
exceptions, and that's something.
I know that-
where-
It's some area where we maybe didn't do the best job communicating all the impacts.
Yeah.
And this would give us plenty of time
So,
to
yeah, that
put
would
together a
be-
fact sheet for
Yeah,
people.
Yeah, that'd be the big thing, so I thought it would apply to fuel.
Yeah, I
That's-
know it may not, so there are gonna be some nuances and
Yeah.
intricacies, and the more we learn and can communicate to the public, I think the better chance we have of getting this passed. Kim?
And there's one hand up on Zoom, you ready, but I sent John a document that has the links to the exemptions and all that stuff too, for compiling. a
Send
fact
it to
sheet.
us,
Huh?
want to send it to us?
I can send it to you also.
Yes.
I mean, basically, it's the listserv post that I sent last year in support of it, so I'll forward that to the board.
Has it changed? Has the exemptions changed at all?
I don't know, I
I
mean,
don't think so.
it was just a resource, basically. it's to the state
Something,
of
one thing that
Vermont.
has changed is that there are a number of additional Vermont towns that have enacted it since last year.
But the other thing I want to, like, we had discussed a little bit before the meeting started about the current collection of Airbnb with our current rooms and meals tax. And on the Airbnb site, they talk about occupancy tax collection and remittance by Airbnb in Vermont specifically, and they talk about that they do collect 1%, but it's interesting, we should definitely follow up on this because they list the specific Vermont towns that have a rules and meals local option tax, and Hartford is not in there. Like there's Brandon, Brattleboro, Colchester. So if it's something that could be retroactive, great. If probably not, but we should be sure to institute it. I'll send that to you right now.
That's a good point. If that money is owed to us by law, we just, essentially the vendor, the company is not remitting it to us.
Because maybe we had to do something to trigger that. Anyway, so that is just another piece where they're collecting it and
Does
same.
Airbnb listed that we have a local
What?
option
Apparently,
tax?
it seems like they don't list our town.
They don't list our town, but they should.
Oh, okay, so the people that are doing it don't know that they have to pay a local option tax.
Correct. So it's up to
Look at that.
Airbnb to collect it and pay it to the state of Vermont, and
Right.
then we need to collect it from the state of
Yeah,
Vermont.
so,
But somehow that communication, whether it's a failure at the town or the state, it hasn't gotten to
Gotcha,
Airbnb.
okay.
Nice catch. Let's hear from the person who has their hand up.
Good idea. Go ahead, Becky. Oh.
Becky,
Hello.
whenever you're ready.
You can unmute yourself, Becky.
Just Becky Shalat?
Don't know yet. Just says Becky. Go ahead.
Hey, good evening. I am signed in under the wrong account, apparently. This is Eric Kraus. I'm a resident in the town of Hartford.
Thank you, Eric. Go ahead with your comment.
Thank you. I'm not only a resident in the town of Hartford, but I am a property owner, which makes me biased toward all things that reduce my property tax burden. The proposed assessing this tax, however, is I still have some significant questions about it. In the memo introducing the item on the agenda, it says the select board has been considering whether to go back to the voters again on this topic with a more robust set of facts. And I kind of expected to see some of those facts in the agenda packet. And so it seems antithetical to the process that you're pursuing, that you're considering as a board, you're being put in the position of considering as board members whether to put this before the voters when you don't know necessarily that full robust set of facts. I mean, you know some of the facts, but I'm not sure that you know all of them. For example, I mean, basically, if we think about the tax collection and then there's some machinations and then there's an outcome. The one thing that we know is the tax collection process, right? That's pretty well defined. What happens in the middle is not defined at this point, which means necessarily that the outcomes or the results can't be defined. So, you know, I think the intention is good to reduce property tax burden, and I'm fully in support of broadening the tax base, but I do have some concerns. For example, I'm looking at ITEP's, some of the data on ITEP, and that stands for the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. And it was Kim Souza who sort of tuned me into this site, I believe, and some of their data from an email that she circulated last season on the same question. Their 2024 data is using Vermont's 2024 taxes based on and residents' 2023 incomes. The sales and excise tax, and you can find this itep.org and just pull up, they have it state by state. If you look at, for example, sales and excise taxes, they have a handy little chart of that. When we look at the income distribution, the lowest 20%, the bottom quintile, for example, earning at a household of less than $27,500 is paying 5.9% as a share of family income in Vermont sales and excise taxes. Whereas, let's just pick the fourth quintile, 83,300 to 135,900. They're paying 2.7% as a share of family income. So the sales tax, I mean, I think we know this inherently, sales taxes are regressive. And here we have the data for it. So I think this is part of the quote unquote robust set of facts that you need to be considering. Now, that's not to say, you know, the argument is not that you can't make this sales tax work in your favor by setting up a structure in which you get the rebates or some mechanism to get money back to the lowest income households. But we don't know the details on that. So wouldn't it make more sense to design a policy and to evaluate its effectiveness, for example, with people from Vermont Law and Graduate School? There's a person, Janet Milne, who is a tax policy expert. I'm not sure if she's the right one, but people like her might be able to contribute significantly to the conversation, as well as economists and others. I think understanding the full picture of it is important. So one of the other questions I have is how does this affect renters? So one of the questions that popped into my head was what percentage of renters in Hartford fall into the bottom two quintiles on the household family income, and how will they be affected? So if you are feeding it, if you're trying to reduce the property tax rate, will they be affected? In a perfect marketplace, in an absolute perfect and theoretical marketplace, when the property tax burden goes down for the landlord, the rent would reflect that. But the reality is we all know that that's not necessarily the case. And this is not to disparage any of the landlords in the town. It's just, if it's volatile, why would I want to change the rent every year? I probably wouldn't do that, A. And B, the market is highly competitive. It's a very tight and inelastic market in Hartford at present, in the Upper Valley, in fact, pretty much across the country. So the market might drive the rate for renters, not a tax rebate, for example, might not have that much of an effect. So I guess what I'm saying is, you might have a number of Hartford residents who fall into that category who aren't seeing any benefit but are paying a burden. And this isn't on things that are completely this isn't on just items that are just non-significant to your life. For example, if I wanted to buy a set of brake pads to repair my automobile, that's probably going to be taxed, I believe.
Each time, if you could summarize your remarks, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying to you tonight is that you are the gatekeepers here as the select board. And without a robust set of facts, you're putting this on the ballot when you don't really fully understand the implications. And I think that might be a mistake. And I can say that right now, I think the public in general is maybe a little tuned out on politics and the goings on in the town, the state, and the country, understandably. Furthermore, people are highly receptive to having their tax burden reduced. And so I think there's a risk of voters making the wrong choice here. And I think that as gatekeepers, you need to keep that in mind. So I'll leave it at that. I do have several pages of comments and questions on this. And this is, the result of just thinking about it this morning. And I don't know that we have all the information, and I don't know that you have all the information to proceed tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Eric.
Can you share that with us?
Yeah, if you could share that with the select board, that would be great.
Well, I would be happy to see the town's quote unquote robust set of facts and discuss this further.
Okay, that sounds great.
Got two more hands.
Okay, let's hear the next hand.
Next, Tim, go ahead.
Okay, Tim.
You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Hey, so this is Tim Ferriel, Heartland, Vermont. I'm sorry, Waver Junction, Vermont. I used to live in Ireland. I'm tired. The local option tax, I know we banged it around last time. I understand the interest in pursuing it for you as a select board. We have some of the highest municipal tax rates in the state. We have a big town to manage. It looks like a kind of an attractive revenue source to kind of help offset some of these challenges for us as a town. I'm still struggling with it. I need more information. I really think that we need to jump on the concept of what does this look like? What are we anticipating revenues look like? What do we think the impact is going to be on the tax rate locally? I think we should articulate the fact that 30 cents of every dollar goes back to the state, which is troubling to me personally. But I have more questions than answers tonight for you guys, and I don't think you should just say, "Yup, let's do this because we think it's going to be better," because then taxpayers will be happy because the rate's lower to what it costs us to run our town. I'm just still wrestling with it, honestly, as a person and a taxpayer and an involved citizen in our town. And so I think you as a select board really need to dive into that a little bit and really understand, what do we think this is going to look like in terms of how it will drive back down our municipal tax rate? What will be the impact to our citizens at large for consumer tax impact and so on, before you just sort of say, "Yup, I think this is a good solution and let's do it." And there are many other towns, as we know, in Vermont that have gone this route, and it's probably perhaps working for them. But I would like to participate or get involved in a way of really diving into this a little deeper to understand what it means for us as a town, locally, on the ground. And I hope that helps.
Thanks very much, Tim. We have another hand up.
Go ahead. Oh, Dylan?
Dylan?
Dylan, you can go ahead.
Dylan, if you're there, we're ready to hear you.
They're unmuted.
Sorry, Dylan, we can't seem to hear you. If you get, we can, before we move on from this item, we'll bring you back on.
Yeah, just leave them.
Any other hands up?
There's Becky's hand is still up. Is that Eric, you just leaving yours up, or I don't want to put it down for you. Did you want to speak again? Dylan just muted themselves.
Okay. Well,
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to take my hand down, but if you're giving me an opportunity to speak again, I would just say that a few years ago, when the town considered retail cannabis sales in Hartford, someone organized a panel of experts to talk about that, and we got to hear the pros and cons, and in a good panel would have participants that are that share a variety of views and really get at the dialectic. And I would encourage that for this topic as well.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks. I'll lower my hand now.
Okay, thanks. So of course, if we put this on the ballot, we're going to have a public hearing about it, and we're going to have budget and candidates night to talk about it, things like that. Look, I agree with I think basically with what Lanny pointed out originally, is that our budgets, our costs continue to grow. And if we don't look for other means of revenue, it's just going to eventually become unbearable for the tax rate. And this is a way to find.
I think this is Dylan again.
Hi, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Funky microphone. I won't take too long, but I wanted to echo Tim's sentiments. I think my concern lies.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Sorry, Dylan Owens. I'm a resident of Wilder and Homa. I think the tax burden on our residents is high enough, and I have concerns with increasing that burden. But I guess if we're going to propose this idea, do we have a cost analysis on the potential revenue, and is there a target or goal for the application of that revenue, rather than it just being kind of a blind cash grab, if you will?
Right. I believe the estimate last year is we would have gotten somewhere like 600,000.
Conservatively, 650,000 to $1 million.
650 to $1 million, and under one possible proposal, that money is just used to pay down the tax rate.
To pay down what? Sorry.
The tax rate.
Basically, the
okay.
Lower
so the proposal is to use it to directly lower resident property taxes. Is that correct?
The idea, the main thing is we need revenue that isn't generated from the property tax, and we don't have a whole lot of ways to do that. We have our rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverage tax. This would add a local option sales tax, right? Because as we see, the budgets just keep going up. Sometimes it's not even our fault. It's just that there are costs that keep going up. And if we don't find, a way to offset some of that, eventually we're either going to have to, the tax burden will become too much, or we will have to change what, the perception of what Hartford residents expect of services from the town. It's got to go one way or the other. I mentioned this last year, I'm a very strong advocate for this. I'd like to see it get back on the ballot. Certainly, we will have public meetings. We will have our budget and candidates night. I believe that we'll be able to get out information to everyone. And if the voters feel we haven't made our case or that we have not answered their questions, they can vote against it. They voted it down last time, so it's not a sure thing putting it back on the ballot. But we have to find some way to reduce the property tax burden. And the one thing I like about the local option sales tax is that it's not food, it's not medicine, it's not clothing. You know, if I want to go out and buy something, you know, that's, you know, not a necessity. I'm making that decision. It's an extra penny on the dollar, you know, and I think that that's worth it to reduce the property tax burden. So those are just my 2 cents. I'd like to see us authorized to put this on the ballot. And I'd like at a future meeting for us to actually vote on the proposed language and how we want it to operate. So that's what I'd like to see.
One thing I'll point out.
Sorry to jump in. Two final questions, and I'll give you your time back. If it were to pass, would the select board be willing to put a time limit on the application of the tax? No. And if it is voted down, will the select board continue to pursue it as an option?
I think for the second question, that's up to future boards. We'll have a new board in March. Not everyone who's here today will be there. And at some point, if it just doesn't pass, we may just say, look, it's just not something that the voters are going to accept. And we got to find a different way to reduce the property tax burden. I don't believe that we would put any sort of time on a tax. I think the question is, if the tax isn't working, eventually we could have a motion to repeal it, essentially. Lanny?
Yeah, I want to talk about this a little bit more, Dylan. And just the way that I look at it is that our costs alone of doing services in the town of Hartford exceeds, usually, I'm just going to ballpark this, usually exceeds, you know, 4% or 5% every year, just due to costs associated with insurance, cost of living increases, negotiated contracts that we have with our employees. I don't know about you, but I mean, our budget this year was presented at 11.3%. I don't know how many people out there got an 11.3% increase in their pay to help pay for taxes in the town, but I certainly did not. And if we continue in this current path that we have of, you know, inflation just driving up costs that are uncontrollable by us, we're going to be basically forcing people that have fixed incomes either out on the street or they're going to leave Hartford. And if there's a way to offset that by having a local option tax where it's spread amongst everybody that visits the town and does business within the town of Hartford, I'm supportive of that. And in order to keep the people that call Hartford home, I'm more than willing to support that. I just don't see a way for us to continue to provide the services to the residents of the town of Hartford in a manner that they're accustomed to without having additional revenue source. And this revenue source is something that's not going to be a burden on everybody's tax bill. If you can think of something, I and the rest of the board would welcome ideas on how to increase revenue for the town of Hartford, because we've looked at decreasing costs, and that's something we're going through right now. And that's an untenable solution, to be decreasing costs that are fixed.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
John, and then we'll see what the select board's pleasure is on this item.
Yeah, I just have a comment about timing. Timing is important only because we're talking not only about budget and candidates night or a town and school meeting just before town meeting, but we also have a possibility of an information night, and that has been tentatively scheduled for January 6th. So the sooner we make a decision on this, the sooner we can start gathering and presenting information at the January 6th meeting.
Kim?
Just one comment that I have talked to several town managers about their experience with the local option tax, the sales tax, and pretty unanimously the consensus was it's a no-brainer. It was a good solution, but particularly Brattleboro, which is also a border town, like on the border of New Hampshire. It did take them 3 tries to get it with, like, it failed twice. And it was the 3rd time that they put it on the ballot, and that they did specify that the use for it would be to offset the tax rate that was the one that did pass. So I'm just kind of giving a little background on anecdotally, not obviously not scientifically.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for the comments from the people that spoke tonight. I think the idea of like some type of panel of experts is a really good one, and as a way to kind of ground and facilitate an information night or community discussion that we're hoping to have. So John, I know we're looking at a tight timeline, but I'm curious if, at least reaching out to a few people, or if other board members think that might be helpful. Perhaps the Brattleboro town manager might want to be part of the discussion, or would be willing, or like casting a wide net like that, or someone, as the resident suggested, someone from the law school, if there's an economist.
The problem is defining an expert, and often with experts, you have axes to grind, and you've got to be mindful that not everybody comes at this with an open mind and with no particular agendas. So if you're willing to deal with the agendas that might come out of a very progressive law school like Vermont Law School, that's fine, but you need to be aware that that's what you're going to get.
I don't know. I don't know if I see it that way. Like, I think experts have their expertise, and especially if they're not residents of Hartford, that they wouldn't be biased in that way. And that if they would introduce themselves as who they are and what their position is and what their expertise is, then residents could listen with the lens that they find appropriate. I don't know if anyone would be willing to do this as a favor, but I think it's just a really interesting and good idea.
I guess I'm anxious about the idea of opening up information night to third parties to present. Usually that's an opportunity for town select board and staff to explain items that are coming up on the town meeting agenda, but I'm happy to hear what the consensus of the board is.
Yeah, I mean, when the cannabis panel happened, it was, so we had James Pepper, who, like, he was the Cannabis Control Board state level, but we also had like the representative from GrowPro, which was a clear advocate for cannabis in the town. So there was a mixed kind of bag of stuff. But I mean, even if it were someone from the Department of Taxes that would be willing to just even like answer some questions, that might be helpful. Again, I don't know if it's attainable.
If there are factual answers instead of, like, I understand what John is saying.
Clash of opinions.
Yes, and instead of opinions, yes, if you could have factual answers that are supported by Vermont legislative policy, that would be one thing. But I do not agree with just having somebody come in basing an opinion-based statement. I don't think that's going to be helpful to us.
I mean, just to respond, I mean, I think that's exactly what I would hope an expert would offer, is, factual information based on their expertise. And we're not hosting a debate, we're hosting an information session. And I feel like that framing would, if we communicated that was the goal, to answer questions and to provide information, then it could be useful to have people besides ourselves. Because I think the speakers made a good point that we're not necessarily experts just because we're on the select board, and that bringing in other voices that can help educate us and residents would be great.
Yep. I do like the idea also of talking with the other town managers. The only problem is I'm sure they're going to be quite busy, but we can do our best to see if we can gin up somebody who could speak to their experience.
Work to facilitate a useful public discussion with people who understand. I mean, a lot of the questions are, if I buy this, do I pay extra? Like, what are the actual items?
Right.
So I think that's important to get nailed down. And also, let's not forget, like, we don't decide. We just put this on the ballot. At the end of the day, if the residents feel we haven't explained it well enough, or they just think it's a bad idea, they'll vote it down. They've done it once before. But I mean, we got to start looking for ways to reduce the property tax burden and continue to provide the services that the town expects. In a way that's not going to break the bank. Kim and then Brandon, and then let's figure out what we want to do on this.
Okay, and
And
then
then we'll
like,
hear from them.
I just want to also, and again, I'm not an expert, but there is a lot of information out there. And I do think providing fact sheets with as many resources as possible, including links to the site that Eric referenced, that I kept, but like sales taxes are inherently regressive, meaning they are more harmful to lower income folks than they are to higher income. Vermont's sales tax mechanism is one of the most progressive in the country. I think it's like third most progressive in terms of, because of things like not charging sales tax on food and clothing and those kind of things. It is on the spectrum, even though sales tax is a regressive tax, it's one of the more progressive in the overall. So those are kind of things that, like, I do think people are interested in. You know?
Yeah. And it's a good point too. We already paid 6 cents on the dollar already. You know, this is an extra penny. Not saying it doesn't make a difference to people, but you know, it's not going from 0 to 7. Then you have a comment, and then we hear from Gwen, and then we'll decide what we want to do.
Tim's got his hand back up.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't have said it better than Ida did. I'm in favor of having someone who knows about sales tax in a scholarly way come to this information session or talk to us. I'm absolutely in favor of reducing finding other sources of revenue other than property tax to fund our services as they are. We weren't sure whether it applied to auto fuel or heating fuel. And we're pretty sure it would apply to auto repairs. And these 3 things are really big expenses for folks who are pinching their pennies. I mean, my colleague today went to buy a bunch of ingredients for her Christmas cookies that she makes hundreds of every season. And I found this online. It just kind of was served to me. Some algorithm sent this my way. It's a not new, but it's a different inflation index than the consumer price index that we're all familiar with. This is, it's measured differently. It's measured based on Christmas cookie ingredients. And so the consumer price index shows that, inflation has gone up 2.6% in the last 12 months. But the price of Christmas cookie ingredients, which is roughly representative of most groceries, it's things like flour and sugar and eggs and butter, 6.2%. So, it's just folks who are only spending on necessities are really being squeezed. So I'm just extra careful of recommending that. I understand. I would love to just hear more about how progressive the sales tax mechanisms in Vermont are. Thanks.
Thanks, Gwen, and then we'll hear from Tim on Zoom, and then we will decide what we want to do. Gwen.
Hi, I'm Gwen Tucson. I live in the Christian Street Historic District. 3 things I think it would be very helpful for voters to have a clear understanding about what is tax and what is not tax, like we've talked about. 2, I think that one of the comments of one of the people online, and part of what Kim was just saying, is if we have some good statistics about how paying extra sales tax affects people in the different socioeconomic portions of our population, particularly people who rent, and knowing that in the town of Hartford, how much of our sales of things that would be affected are actually being bought by people who do not live in Hartford. They live in people outside our region because it's a tourist town, so the sales tax is different. And the third thing is, how much can we actually project it actually affects our businesses who sell things that are going to be affected by the tax? If people are worried about business sales going down, is that a real fear? If we can figure out statistics or projections on things like that, I think it would be helpful for people.
Thanks, Gwen. Mary, and then we'll hear from Tim.
This is just really quick. I think part of what makes this a lot of very much, very difficult is the word tax. People know what a tax is. People are vehemently against taxes. And you can't call it anything else. But it is something that's when they hear it, a lot of people turn on.
Let's hear from Tim and then decide what we'd like to do.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Hey, guys, thanks for rehearing from me. This is Tim Ferry of White River Junction. Just a couple additional thoughts around this. I feel like I'm becoming an unusual political animal because I feel like there's a balance between what the public sector tries to do to make a community work and what the private sector pays for. And I honestly think that, Kim, if you indicate that, potentially the impact to the town would be $650K to $1 million, I kind of come back to the concept of like, so what does that look like on our tax rate as a town? I'm gonna message to both of you and the school this year, sort of this deeper reflection about what are we doing as a school and a town and a community at large for services and what we provide and what do we need to provide. I think we need to do a deeper dive on what we spend and why, and how much does it cost. And I honestly, I'm generally a pretty, I've always been voted Democratic, full disclosure, and kind of a left-wing guy. But as I've gotten older, I'm a little more like, well, what are we doing and why are we doing it and do we need to do it? And I just sort of feel like when you get these new revenue streams that are maybe further and further out, like federal taxes or state taxes or whatever, people become detached from the reality of on the ground, what does each individual person have to pay to run a community and make it all work versus what are they getting, or is there a tangible value to them as a person? And I'm trying to understand all that, but what I think at the end of the day, the sheet that I shared with you guys a couple weeks ago, or perhaps a month ago, that showed our peer towns, and in green are the towns that have local option tax. And indeed, their municipal rate is significantly lower. What are we now? Are we $1.10, $1.20, some number? Many of those other towns, like Brattleboro or so on, are more like 50, 60 cents. So I'm like, is that because of the local option tax? What's going on there in terms of how they're running their town? Do they have a smaller police force? Do they have a smaller fire department? Are they spending less money on parks and rec or whatever? But what I'm getting at is this idea of like, we need a better analysis of, yes, okay, this revenue could come in, but also what are we spending as a town and a school to run things? And I'm going to go hopefully to the school board meeting tomorrow night and ask the same questions. Like, what are we doing as a school? Let's get the CLA thing sorted out because that's been a mess forever. But I'm trying to do again more of like a better, broader understanding of all of this. And I encourage all of you guys to do the same. To say like, okay, well, if we think it's going to be $1 million, what does that mean on the municipal tax rate? And tell taxpayers about it. So thank you for listening again to me. And
so I have the answer to that question. What would $1 million look like? In this year's budget, 11.3%, $1 million would get us roughly 5% less in our sales. It would drop it from 11.3 to a little over 6%. To me, that's a significant reduction using just local option sales tax. That's what the difference would mean in this year's budget alone, based on that. I also have potential numbers that are be interested in. Back when we looked at this local last charter committee, FX Flynn did a deep dive on this thing, and he came up with fiscal year 2021, there were $564,024,902 in sales reported by Hartford businesses. That's over $500 million. Only 9,196,166 was subject to the Vermont 6% state sales tax, resulting in $5,517, $370 collected in Hartford. But I'm just gonna read this verbatim from what he sent, because I think this explains it very good. Don't forget, when a business uses something that hasn't been taxed, like a shovel maker using a shovel they made, they have to pay a use tax called sales and use tax. There were $1,527,196 worth of uses reported, also subject to the 6% state use tax, resulting in another $91,632. With a 1% local option sales tax, sales and use tax, that would be, those collections would be $6,436,932 and $106,904 or $919,562 more in sales tax. That means the state would not send us a check for that. The town would get $654,383.80. And that's without cannabis, because we didn't have cannabis back then. So cannabis sales is a significant amount. So we're talking, it would be a significant help to us for our budgets.
Am I still on the microphone?
You are.
That's a great assumption, unless some of those businesses that are significant fleet in New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
I'm sorry. I have a tough time with that, because if a business is doing business in the town of Hartford, they're going to continue to business. People that are buying things from the town of Hartford, they go over to Lebanon to buy things. They go to West Lebanon to buy things. They buy things in Hartford. I do a lot of my shopping in West Lebanon, yes, but I shop in Hartford as well. You're not going to drive business out of the town of Hartford. That is I believe, an argument that's been brought before us that is a false argument. Plus, you're going to have all the people that are coming through the town of Hartford that are traveling through. They're going to pay that extra 1% on a dollar.
Thank you, Lanny. All right, select board, you ready for a motion or what?
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, Lanny.
So I move that the select board recommend the town and vote to enact a 1% local option sales tax at town meeting on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Kim. Okay, any discussion?
I guess the discussion would be, we would really love if town staff could prepare very useful fact sheet.
I agree.
And that if there's an opportunity to have some kind of expert give a little question and answer period, information, question and answer at information night.
This would be the ideal time to put something in the mailings for tax, for well, we're not going to send stuff out, but not for this one. Yeah. Tax bills when are tax bills due?
February and August are when,
So we could send something out
when the
February.
2 payments are done, but generally the big mailing is
Okay, so
August. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So okay.
Should we have a motion in a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And we will at a future meeting need to get the precise language. I think the language that was proposed where it basically just says we're just gonna pay down the tax rate is one that, I would think. Okay, our next item, in fact, there are two, I think, that are combined into one motion, right, John?
That's right.
So we want to consider canceling the Christmas Eve meeting. I strongly support that. And authorize select board chair and vice chair to approve the holiday season payroll and accounts payable. We usually do this every year around this time when we're headed into the holidays. So questions for John on that, or I'll take a motion. It's on page 120.
And that's just basically because if you don't take care of AP and payroll, there are problems. So we need to stay on top of it.
Take a motion. What's the question?
I move that the December 24th, 2024 select board meeting be canceled and that the select board leadership, chair and vice chair be authorized to approve payroll and accounts payable as needed between now and January 7th, 2025 meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
A second and then a question.
Okay, second from Kim.
Wait a minute. I don't know if it's appropriate for Kim to
Okay,
make
I
a
won't
second.
second, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
we have a
second
motion.
it.
We have a second from Mary.
Does this mean it would require both the chair and the
No.
vice chair?
I know, recognize that Mike's going to be gone for some portion of it, so I would think I would call on whoever's available. Mike is the first choice and Kim as a backup in case he's not available,
So should we say chair or vice chair
or
vice chair?
Yeah.
Friendly
I
amendment?
only need
Okay
one
with that?
signature.
Is it friendly amendment? Okay, so we have a motion and a second from Mary. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Great work. We got through a lot tonight fairly efficiently. Commission reports. Kim, anything?
I do not.
Brandon?
None.
Mary?
Yes, kind of. H. Corey was meeting on December 4th and we didn't get a quorum. 3 of the members were there. So, but there was a guest online, and so we had a discussion during that time, briefly discussing the possibility of hosting an Upper Valley racial cultural event in the future that would draw on several and diverse cultures and ethnic groups to celebrate our varied and valued community residents. We're hopefully thinking about it would become an Upper Valley event, not specifically a Hartford event, but that it would move from community to community over the years that we would do this, much like how Juneteenth has attracted our neighbors in Lebanon. So that was a discussion. And then for a very short amount of time, we were talking about the disappointments of trying to establish an NAACP in Windsor County. And H4 still has 1 vacancy for high school student liaison.
Thanks, Mary. I have any reports?
No.
Lanny, anything?
Nothing.
Okay, I don't have anything. So consent agenda. I will take a motion.
Let me point out one change. Yes, the second of the future meetings should read December 18th, 2024 budget if needed. Now, I'll just point out that I hope that we won't need that date, but we need to do advertising of these meetings just to keep the possibility open. So we will advertise budget meetings for the 17th, 18th, and 19th. Let us all hope that we make great progress on the 17th, such that it looks like the 19th will do it.
Okay. Kim?
Mr. Chair, I move that select board approve payroll ending December 7, 2024, AP manifests of December 6th and December 10th, 2024, approve meeting minutes of November 26th and December 3rd, 2024, and approve future meetings of December 17th, a budget meeting, December 18th as a budget meeting if needed, December 19th is a budget meeting, and January 7th, 2025.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
A second from Mary. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved at
Motion from
7:54.
Kim. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Mary. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to sign.
Yes, sign please.
Put my shoes on.
Incredible.
But home.
Impressive.
Well,
That is incredible, yes.